Shalom, truth seekers. So, this was a tough seasonal transition this year for me, and well, it was a challenge, I guess, for a lot of people, and some surprises for some people, but an interesting seasonal transition. But anyway, I realize it's kind of late in the game, but I've been waiting to hear from some of the other witnesses, and I'm sure we're all busy with all this coronavirus stuff and things in life, unfortunately, but so for whatever it's worth, I wanted to try and present a summary of everyone's data, and kind of, for those who don't understand this stuff very well, kind of give some possible explanation for what's going on with some of these different methods and this data and how it all corresponds, and potentially answer the question of when was the first day of spring. So this data that you're looking at is kind of just a map, and these coordinates that I have on here help you to locate where a person was, and I've included some contact information here. Some people like their information anonymous, or I wasn't sure if they were okay with me posting their personal information. But if you have any questions about anyone's data, please feel free to email me at AVoiceOfTruthAndLove@gmail.com, and I can try and get in touch with these people and get you whatever data you would like to analyze. And I'm going to try to upload this spreadsheet so you can kind of click on these cells and read all the nitty-gritty notes about everyone, kind of a little summary. And at some point I'd like to try and make that document public so people can actually jump in there and update their own summaries here. And I've included some links for different videos people have done. So please look in the description below. It should be a Google Drive folder, or if I forget to upload it, just check one of the other videos on my YouTube channel, and I'm sure you'll see the link for the Google Drive folder on there. But anyway, real quick off the bat, I want to talk about something important that is going on with some of these dates, and you will see it's kind of an either-or type thing for a few of these, and I want to explain possibly what's going on there. It has to do with a couple different things, but one of the things is, where is the creator's international dateline, or when and where does time begin? And I just pulled some data out of Stellarium to try and track where time begins, and there's this man-made thing called the International Dateline, which was put out there for convenience and practical purposes, but it's not where the creator's times begin. And the solar year is it seems to be something like 365.24-ish days, and so what that amounts to is it takes 365.24 days to complete a cycle. So if we started time here, by the time the seasonal cycle completes itself, you're going to get to day 365, but then you're going to need to jump an extra quarter of a day, that 0.2, to finish that seasonal cycle out. And so the next seasonal cycle will begin here, and the same thing, the following year at day 365, you'll come here, and then you need an extra 20.24 of a day, and it'll bring you here, and it keeps progressing like this, and it keeps moving like that. And so this is what Stellarium has to say about that. I don't know how accurate this is exactly, but it is an important question, something to realize, what's going on with the creator's times, and how potentially, the start of his year is shifting. And I think it's designed that way, and I'm sure there's a reason for it, but anyway, that's what seems to be happening. But so think about, if you're not familiar with, we're going to talk about the straight line method for a minute. Some people call this a shadow plot, but I mean, essentially, if you just put like a stick in the ground and watch the shadow cast by the top point of that stick during the course of a day, and you just kind of put a flag in the ground or something, you'll notice it plots out a pattern. And the theory is that around the time of the equinox, or the seasonal transition in the spring, if you live in North America, I guess if you South America, the seasons would be reversed, but anyway, that shadow plot should form a straight line over the course of a day from the amount of time that the sun is above the horizon. And so, let's take for example someone, Juan Carlos, who was doing the straight line method. And let's imagine now this other map here, and I've just put maps side by side to kind of show just the progression of things. But he's waiting for the straight line method here. So he needs for the sun from when the sun breaks the horizon to when it sets is the amount of time he has to collect data for the straight line. And so his location is marked with this vertical, but the sun is going to be way over here somewhere when it rises and starts to give him that sign. And then, it's going to need to go and it's going to need to set. And that'll be the end of his sign day. He was able to collect data with respect to his location for as long as the sun was above the horizon. So then let's jump to some of these other truth seekers who are up here in the western United States. So their location again is marked with this vertical. So for them, they're starting to collect straight line data, and again, the sun needs to be east of them some amount as soon as it breaks the horizon, and then it'll go below the horizon again or whatever. and so you just keep going, you progressing, and now let's just look at someone who's wherever that is. I'm not too familiar with Scotland or something, maybe, but whatever, say it's someone here. And I mean, you've got to take it all the way to the end. Somebody who's like in Brazil, because remember we started with Juan, who is in Chile. So if you want to go full circle, you'd be looking at someone in Brazil. But let's just look at this person, just to try and simplify this. So they are waiting for the sun to rise, and then they're going to wait for the sun to set. So it is from this red line to this red line, and again it would be a little bit more because you'd need, for the person in Brazil who didn't see the same sunrise that Juan did in Chile, they were a couple hours behind or whatnot. So I mean, it does get a little more exaggerated than this, but just to try and simplify this, from this red line to this red line is the amount of time the sun would have to be doing this particular pattern in the sky in order for everyone to have their opportunity to see the straight line. And what you'll notice is from here, what does that look like? Southern tip of Africa. So, and you go all the way in 24 hours, that's the southern tip of Africa again. But we've got to go more because this guy didn't get a chance to see the straight line yet, so you've got to go more. And the point of it is these sign days with the straight line method, it seems, have the potential to be more than 24 hours. And what there ends up being is, if the sign day, for example, and this is a question of where is the Creator's International date line, that'll be the starting point, and then whoever sees it first, you just go from there. But we just started with one just for an example. So, but the point is that if the sun started riding this course here, and the 24 hours is up around here, and then there's this overlap region is what I'm trying to say. And so there's potential that somebody who lives somewhere in this overlap region might have seen a straight line on one day and then partial straight line on the next day, so for 2 days in a row. Or if they were using another sundial method and they were, for example, trying to check something out at solar noon, so only one time during the day, they might definitely see if they just happen to be living in the overlap region, it's potentially they could see, there's potential they could see the sign 2 days in a row. So that's why, and I think if that is the case, time really should probably begin where you see the sign first, because if you see it 2 days in a row and you're in that overlap region, I mean, it's just overlapping and you're seeing it twice just because this guy hasn't seen it yet. But for you saw it, and you saw the full thing, well, I would just say the first time you see it. So that just, that explains why, a potential reason why some of these dates might be either or some people actually claim to have seen signs for 2 days in a row, so I mean that is possible. But without further ado, I'm going to start kind of analyzing some of the results that jumped out at me. And I don't, like I said, if you want to hear more about some of these other people's results, feel free to reach out to them. They have Facebook pages, or if you, I can see if they if you want to get in touch with them to hear more about their methods and their results. I can try and put you in touch with them. I'll play middleman one way or another. But let's just start. So I don't want to ignore. There is a group that appears to still be questioning if these seasonal transitions are kind of drifting backwards, and I think this has to do with like the 364-day year. People started making that claim, like the Jerry Morris channel, and even Juan Carlos a few years ago were thinking that the solar cycle was 364, and that was 3 or 4 years ago. And so now I think these group are still thinking it might be. They're still testing it out. And so, just for example, this one individual, he thought he was seeing the straight line on it was either the 17th or the 18th, but earlier than most of these other dates. And but he told me he wasn't sure because he didn't get like early. That's really important when you do the straight line pattern. You get marks as early in the morning and as late in the evening as possible, and definitely get marks around solar noon, because if you don't do that, you might think you're looking at a straight line, but it really is those early morning points and then at solar noon that kind of show you the big inflection. So again, if you want to hear more about these, let me know. I'll put you in touch with them. But I'm going to jump to Juan Carlos, because like I said, he is one of the original ones that I kind of came across, I guess, who thought that he was seeing the solar cycle being 364 instead of the 365.25. And so this was a big year for him, because I love this brother, and he's very, very, thankfully, very meticulous and careful about the way he collects his data, and he does everything he can to kind of show us exactly how he calibrated his instruments. And so this was a big year for him, because he was kind of, I guess you could say, he was in this group who are thinking potentially time might be, well, the solar cycle might be something different and the dates are drifting back. But so he was kind of in the lead of that group, and being very meticulous and very careful and showing us exactly what he's doing. This was a big year for him, because he was seeing something he did not expect, and that was that the solar cycle was longer than 364. And he collected enough data to kind of establish that, but he didn't continue to collect data past the 18th, unfortunately, so I don't know exactly which date it would have been for him, but we're going to look at some of his data right now. For those of you who may be a little inexperienced with this kind of thing, this type of sundial is called an armillary, and he's got it set up to a couple different clamps that he can angle, and this here is he's showing us the angle that he has, it depends on your latitude, you know, in theory, and he's pulled this from Google or somewhere to make sure his sundial is pointing at the correct angle. And then the theory is, you know, when he's got crosshairs on the sundial, and I don't know if you can see them, there's one of them, but then there's another set of arms, semicircle, that's going the other way perpendicular to this one, and they cross in the middle. And so that's the shadow you're seeing here, and the theory is on the day of the equinox, if you've got your angle set properly, this line will cross the midpoint of this piece of wood. And so what he was seeing this year was on the 18th, as you can see, it was not quite there yet. And based on my experience of sundials, I don't really use armillaries, but I have experimented with tall and short sundials, and I know that the movement is very, very slight. From day to day, you're watching this line kind of slowly shifting up and down like this, approaching this middle line, and this vertical line is moving quickly over the course of the day. But this one, it's a very, very slight movement, and so I don't know. It's definitely not to the mark on the 18th, and that was enough to get him to admit. I mean, you know, this is all truth-seeking. So, and I'm thankful for his integrity, and I really hope he continues to do this, because it's important to understand what the luminaries are doing, and then we can kind of, you know, Genesis 1:14 says those heavenly luminaries were for times, for seasons, for days, and for years, so it's important to know what they're doing. So I do hope he continues to measure. I mean, and we're just, you know, he's being diligent, and we all need to be as diligent. But anyway, so he said it didn't look like it was going to hit this mark, and I would say there's definitely at least one day, possibly two, before it hits that mark, from what I've seen on these sundials, these shorter sundials that split hairs and move very slightly over the course of a day. So, and in addition, if you check out this video on his YouTube channel, Light to the Nations, he also did the straight line method, and at the end of this day on the 18th, he was saying he still definitely saw a curve. So he had two witnesses showing him that, you know, it didn't appear the seasonal transition had occurred yet. So next, we're moving on to Remnant of the Light, and she is using an armillary. I believe she tried the straight line method as well, but may have gotten clouded or rained out. So this is the name of the video and approximately the time when the snapshot was taken. But the theory is this shadow on the day of the equinox should be bisecting this piece of wood perfectly, and as you can see, this is her data from the 19th. It appears that it's trailing off to the side and it's not perfectly bisected. So I think the next day she is saying on the 20th that it does look to be bisected exactly. And again, this kind of sundial is dependent upon a specific angle pulled from Google or NASA or somewhere that gives you your angle that you need to point this thing up to the sun. But so that, in combination with Juan's data was pointing towards at least definitely not it didn't appear to be the 18th, it definitely was pointing towards at least either the 19th or the 20th, and so this witness seems to be pointing towards the 20th. So let's see what we have next. This is brother Enzo out in Australia. You can see his data in the summary on the summary page in the spreadsheet. But this is called an equatorial sundial, and this is again a sundial that is based upon an angle that he has measured. So you'll see the back of this thing is kind of on a kickstand and it's angled up but it's casting a shadow, and I think this spike that's coming out is casting a shadow on the face of this page. And when the sun gets behind this paper, then you won't see the shadow anymore, I think, is how that works. So this is, I guess, maybe a picture showing that, and you can't see. And then he said he also did the straight line method, and he thought he was seeing that on the 20th, and he thought the shadow disappeared on the equatorial sundial on the 20th. And then this, I guess, is kind of showing the shadow on the backside, maybe, or something. But anyway, his witness, he thought it happened on the 20th. This is brother out in California. His sundial, again, is based on his latitude and the angle of this Carpenter square. I believe he said matched his angle, and so he's looking for the shadow to disappear, similar to Enzo's shadow somewhat. And the interesting thing about his observations was, if you look at the data, I have the question mark of either the 19th or the 20th, and he said he wasn't sure. I think he's leaning towards the 19th, but I do believe I heard him say he thought it was gone on the 20th too. And on that note, there's another brother, I didn't know if he would like me to include his name or not, but he was kind of out in the same neck of the woods-ish, and he was doing the straight line method, and he thought he saw the straight line on the 20th as well, so that's another witness to keep in mind. And then I had a friend somewhat near my location. This would be the other anonymous truth seeker at location G, but this is the instrument used for the measurements, and I believe a sextant was also used to kind of measure the position of the sun on the horizon. And these two methods were employed by 4 different individuals that my friend was in touch with, and they were all, I guess, apparently claiming that the vernal equinox occurred on the 20th. So whether or not that means that's the first day of spring or the day following is the first day of spring is another question, I guess, but the data and the signs that they saw were, the claim, I believe, is that the vernal equinox occurred on the 20th. So here, just so you know, because I guess I did hear from a couple people, and maybe some people either thought I was abandoning my traditional sundial methods, or maybe they're not familiar with my channel and they don't realize that I do the straight line method every opportunity I get. But I do typically try to look for the shadows. I did have a new idea with the pictures in the celestial equator this year that I'll talk about in a minute. But I do typically try to collect the shadow data as well, but unfortunately, as you can see, I got rained out. I think I was trying on the 18th, but then I just got rain, and it just rained and rained from there on out. I mean, the sun poked through here and there, but it was enough for me to get pictures of it, but not to cast a shadow and for me to collect any kind of data with that. So that said, for if anyone, just in case no one was aware, this is the first time you're hearing about it, I did collect some data with a camera this year. Let me show you what exactly. So I made a mount, and I did, this was my first attempt. I did replace this block of wood with a block that was not split. But the intention of this mount is that I can set my camera on this post, and this post goes down, it's very rigid, and I can just set the camera down and lean it back against this sloping block, and then shove it up against this side block, so it's restrained in 3 locations. And what that enables me to do is I'm able to take my camera and drop it in there and take a picture of the exact same piece of sky in the daytime or at night, and then I can just stack those pictures to see where the sun is with respect to the stars. And one thing I want to mention while we're looking at this mount, if you ever try and do this, you need to be extra careful to make sure everything is cut flush. Like, one challenge that I ended up realizing was this corner back here was kind of depressed a little, so when I put the camera in, it was touching on the bottom and on this side edge, but as it got towards this corner, it kind of lifted off the back. So you gotta be careful if you do this. Make sure your pictures are consistent. The point of this mount is that you can take a picture of the same patch of sky, the camera will be in the same exact position, same exact orientation, same exact zoom, and you also need to make sure your camera is taking pictures with the same exact size. And I'll show you a demonstration of what could be good or bad about that. So, so this is the data that I collected, and as you can see, hopefully my computer don't crash. Okay. So as you can see, the blue, I took some pictures of the moon just to see what was going on with that this year. I know there were there seemed to be a thought that the moon would line up with the sun this year. The Jerry Morris channel had a nice video showing that last year, but it seems this year that did not happen. So, but that's why I was tracking the moon. But more importantly, is the question of when does the sun cross the celestial equator. And just to give us perspective here, if you're familiar with the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, that's what gives us our seasons. The sun and these lines can be projected up into the stars. The Tropic of Cancer, if you're looking up at the stars, is going to run right above the constellation of Orion, and the Tropic of Capricorn, if you're looking at the constellation of Orion, is going to run right below the constellation of Orion. And there's something called the celestial equator, which is it's the projection of the real equator on something called the celestial sphere, and it kind of gives you a map that you can measure positions of the stars and luminaries with up in the sky. And so the celestial equator is, if you're looking up at the constellation of Orion, the celestial equator in theory runs right above the top right star in Orion's belt. Okay, and so if you're watching the sun's position with respect to that patch of sky, and with respect to the constellation of Orion, and with respect to the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, that's why we have seasons. So over the course of the year, the sun is obviously moving east to west every day, but in addition, every day it's slightly moving north and south, and it's bouncing between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. Or if you're looking with reference to the stars, it's floating above the constellation of Orion, below the constellation of Orion, and then through Orion's belt, pretty much. And those give you the divisions of the seasons. Like when it hits one extreme, that season is done, and it starts to return and gives you another season. So like when the sun is up here, us in North America will have summer, and when the sun is down here, we will have winter. And somewhere right in the middle, when it crosses the celestial equator, is where we get another division of the seasons, the spring and the fall. So that's the theory that was behind collecting this data. And just so that you can see how this works, like I said, this mount, you take the picture from the mount, and it's theoretically the same exact size. You gotta make sure it is the same exact size. And so I just brought these pictures into Excel, and I cropped them. I just cropped this lower corner out of all the pictures, but I left this edge and this edge for all the pictures. And the reason I did that is because all I have to do is just drag the picture over there and up as far as I can, and it'll just automatically position. Everything will be stacked perfectly because I'm just running it up into the corner up here. And sometimes if you drag it too far, you'll see this red circle and it'll kind of bounce back. So you need to make sure you grab it down here somewhere and grab it up, and that'll drop it into position. So anyway, I started out, I didn't even know if I'd be able to take pictures of the stars. I always heard like you needed some kind of fancy schmancy camera to take pictures of the stars. But I went out there and I just gave it a shot. And I was able to take pictures of the stars with my not a fancy camera, and I was amazed. And it was the night after I took this picture. Like, I just had the opportunity to make this mount, and then it was that night that I had clear skies at night, and I was able to take pictures of Orion's belt. And these pictures will be uploaded to that folder on Google Drive. The link should be below this video or below one of the other videos in this Spring Equinox series. But, so you can analyze them for yourself. The thing, it was really a challenge with this camera. And, you know, this was my first attempt this year. I think I'm gonna save you the cut to the chase and tell you, unfortunately, I wouldn't hang my hat on this data this year. I mean, I'm looking forward to trying it again and refining a few things, but there were some bugs I had to work out, and like I said, it was like 3 or 4 weeks ago that I was able to plot Orion's belt. And if you don't know, Orion's belt, like, these stars just spin. They don't move between the Tropic of Cancer and Capricorn. They just always spin east to west. So it doesn't matter what time of year. If you're able to map out the stars, you're gonna be able to map out the stars. But the point is, what I'm trying to say is, I had one shot, one night, to map out the celestial equator with my other camera, and with my bad camera. And then I have had overcast skies at night for like 3 weeks in a row, and I never got the opportunity to like double. Even now, I've been trying every night, and there's just been clouds every night, and they might break for a second, but it's kind of wispy clouds, and my bad camera is not, it has to be a perfectly clear night for me to be able to get a picture of the stars with that camera. I can show you real quick, just for comparison. I was experimenting with another camera, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but you can clearly, this one does take good pictures of the sky, but the problem is, there are problems, and unfortunately I had overcast skies. But you can clearly see there's Orion's belt, there's his sword, and so like it was really easy with this camera. But with my first camera, it was very, very challenging. And my house is over here, and we have a yard light on the other side of my house. So if you're familiar with trying to see things in the night sky at night, there's something called light pollution, and if there are too many lights around you at night, then it makes it harder for you to see the stars because the other lights are too bright. And so what I'm trying to say is, when I mapped out the celestial equator that night, I could clearly see this picture, and I think 2 of these ones down here, could clearly see all 3 stars in Orion's belt. But this one up here was not clear because of the light pollution coming from my house over here. So this one is questionable, and you need to keep that in mind as we progress through this. But I was only able to position this one because I thought I could see Rigel is a bright star in the constellation of Orion, and I was kind of able to take this screen capture from Stellarium, and I lined it up with where Rigel was down here somewhere, and I mean, but it's rough. All that to say, it was rough, okay? And I was desperately hoping I could remap the celestial equator with my better camera that can take good pictures of the night sky, but unfortunately that opportunity just did not present itself. I'm going to keep trying, because once, like I said, once you map out the celestial equator, you can map it out any time of year, as long as you can see the constellation of Orion at night, which for me, you know, Orion's slowly kind of going to line up with the sun at some point, and I won't see it at night anymore, so I do need to try and map that out sometime in the next month, or I'm going to lose my opportunity until, like, next winter again. But I'll keep trying. But anyway, so this was if you were following the videos on my YouTube channel, you'll see I plotted these two lines here from the beginning, and then I started taking pictures of the sun, and you can see this was from the 8th, and this was from the 8th, and so I connected those two with a straight line. This next one was from the 9th, so you can see how it has shifted just a little bit above that line, these lines going through the center of these ones on the 8th. So you can kind of see the progression. These dates and these yellow lines connect different dates. So the theory is, again, that the sun is progressing towards the celestial equator. And at some point, the theory is that the seasonal division occurs, or the straight line pattern occurs, kind of the same thing, just two different ways of looking at it, but it will occur when the sun is bisected by the celestial equator, when the disk of the sun is half and half on the celestial equator line. And again, as you can see, this is a screen capture from Stellarium. They're showing the celestial equator running right above his belt, and I know you can't see it, but if you go into Stellarium and turn on the equatorial grid lines, you will see this grid line has it's 0 degrees. So anyway, so it was interesting to see the sun progress. And on the 18th, I was able to snap a picture. It was really cloudy, so you can't see the sun that much, but you can see it was there. I was like, oh, that's interesting, you know, it kind of lined up. And I was really desperate to get pictures of the sun because it was so cloudy. I only had like 1 minute in a day. Like, it looked like there was a break in the clouds, and it was enough for me to snap a picture. From the 13th to the 18th, it was all cloudy, and then there was just a break for a moment. You saw the rain on my paper for the straight line method. When I tried that, it was raining this day, but it broke for a second, and I was able to get this snapshot. So it looked like it wasn't quite on the line yet. And bear in mind, this line is roughed in there. Like, I don't know for sure where these ones are, and you're going to see that's really significant here in a minute. But in addition, I did kind of have a pretty good view of these, and like I said, you can check out those pictures if you want them. I can give them to you so you can evaluate them for yourself. But as you can see, the celestial equator is not going through that top star in Orion's belt; it's going right above that top star in Orion's belt. So that's kind of the ballpark average of what we're looking at here. But again, what happens out here could be, and I think is, a different story. So anyway, it was interesting to see. I was thankfully able to get pictures briefly as the sun was visible on the 18th, on the 19th, on the 20th, on the 22nd, on the 24th, and the 26th. So you can see as the sun came over this area and then crossed over this area, but it's right in here that our critical measurements are. And so you can see on the 19th, it looks like there's a chance we had bisection of the sun on the 19th. And then on the 20th, it looks like it might have been right above the line. And again, on the 22nd, it's progressing a little more. It's interesting, it doesn't seem to have progressed a lot more. This is a 2-day jump I had clouds on the 21st, so it's 2 days from the 20th to the 22nd, and that's all moved, so that's kind of interesting. Almost makes me wonder if it kind of held its position a little longer on the 20th and the 21st, because that's not much of a jump. But anyway, considering the other witnesses that I talked about earlier, and what I'm about to show you, even though this looks bisected here, this is rough. Unfortunately, that's all I can say. With practice, I think this can be refined, but I just didn't have an opportunity to remap the celestial equator. If you watch some of the videos in this series, you'll hear me talk about it. Like every video, I wanted to remap the celestial equator to make absolutely certain these were, and I wanted to do it with my better camera, but I just never got that chance. But so anyway, after it was all said and done, I kind of went back and analyzed things, and there's something important I need to show you, and that's this little guy right here. So this little guy was taken on the 18th, and he was taken right as the sun started coming into the patch of sky. It's going to be up here. And look what happens when I drop it in. Give you a second to tell me what's wrong with that while I move this over. Okay, so there's something wrong with the orientation of the celestial equator, because here, and like I said, remember, and you can check this out for yourself, but this picture of Orion's belt and this picture, and at least 3 out of 4 of these pictures were very clear. I could see Orion's belt. So I mean, I know that the line should be about that close to Orion's belt. Like, I could see this one clearly, but I couldn't see this one clearly. And I think it was actually this bottom one I couldn't see clearly either, because it was starting to get hidden by these trees. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is this is clearly not right, because the sun on the 18th, I got another picture of this. I got another picture of the sun on the 18th right here, and it's below the celestial equator, and that is correct. I believe that's correct, because again, I did get a good picture of Orion's belt right here, and so I know the celestial equator is like right here somewhere. So this is accurate, but tracing this line back, this cannot be accurate, because these pictures, this one and this one, were both taken on the 18th, so the sun has to be below the celestial equator. So that's what this other line is that I have drawn here, and so I'm gonna kind of put it about the same distance I would expect it to be away from the celestial equator, kind of with respect to what we saw here. And what I'm trying to show you here is, now look, this new line is bisecting, it looks like it's bisecting the sun on the 20th. So that's why in my summary, you'll see me saying the 19th or the 20th, because, you know, this was the first year I did this, and there are bugs to work out, and I'm not going to hang my hat on this, unfortunately. I'm looking forward to trying it again, but it's just not, it really, especially considering this one, I don't know if there's something going on with the fisheye lens of my camera, but the simple truth of the matter is I never was able to map out the celestial equator up here. I feel pretty good about down here, but not up here. And I know I'm going to be able to map it out with my better camera, so I mean, I'm just looking forward to doing that, but it just didn't work out this time. And so all this data, as cool as it is, it really, what it amounts to is it really could have been either the 19th or the 20th, I think. So I'm kind of looking towards the other witnesses, and I've got one more thing that I'm going to discuss, one of my witnesses, but so, all of this to say, I think it's pretty cool, and it's pretty close, but it's not something I'm going to hang my hat on, but I'm going to say it's definitely enough to say it was probably either the 19th or the 20th, so I'm going to look at the other witnesses. But I just want to show you a couple of the things to watch out for if you ever try this with a better camera. So, here is that picture that I was able to get with my better camera of Orion, and you can see the sword in his belt, and the sun there with respect to, and I believe this was the 19th. So I was very excited to see how, oh wait, I'll show you in these other pictures, I guess, how this one would line up. Like, I didn't get very many pictures of Orion because we just said clouds and clouds and clouds. So, I mean, I kind of had to use 1 or 2 pictures that I got to map out the whole thing. And so, again, it's just not very accurate. But I want to show you some things in case you want to try this, or if maybe someone can tell me what went wrong for me, because I haven't been able to figure it out yet. But these settings right here, when I uploaded the pictures, the files for these pictures on my computer, I right-clicked on the file and went to Properties and then went to Details, and these are the settings that I had to change on the camera. in order to take a picture of the stars. And I think probably all of these are important. This one was important. This one might have been the most important. I think it's the shutter speed, and I had to change that to 30 seconds, so that what that meant was I had to take a picture and then hold the camera absolutely still for 30 seconds while it kind of got a good visual of those stars or whatever. But I mean, all these are important. And then this is the settings that it was on when I took pictures of the sun, and you can see the shutter speed is immediate. For that one, I think I switched it to bulb mode, which bulb mode, I guess, instead of it running for a certain amount of time, it just runs for the amount of time that you're holding down the button. So I think if you're in bulb mode, you might be able to get like the star trail pictures or something. But anyway, I only hold it down for a second. That way I didn't have to change all my other settings. But the thing is that I want you to notice, and if anyone knows anything about photography, I'd like you to chime in. But so this is a picture of the sun. So you can see it's the same picture that I have cropped down here, but I'm going to show you what's going on. So I have this picture of Orion, and it would be perfect. It would be so easy to map out Orion, and this was on a cloudy night. If I had a clear night, it'd be beautiful. So I'm sure I could map out that celestial equator pretty good. But here's the problem. This is the full picture before I cropped it down. Now look what's happening. For some reason that I haven't been able to figure out yet, it looks like it has slightly resized one of these photos, and I don't know why. And that is very important. You can see kind of the orange trees in the background. It's the same height. You can see down here at the bottom, it's the same height, but for whatever reason, I don't know why, the width is slightly different. And that's a problem for this method that I'm doing. Remember, it's got to be the same exact position, the same exact orientation, the same exact zoom, and these picture files have to be the same exact size if you're going to be dragging and dropping them in one on top of the other. So all that to say, I'm open for suggestion. If anyone knows anything about these fancy cameras and can tell me why this was resized, that would be great, because this is the camera I would like to use to do this in the future, because I can get really good shots of Orion and I can map out what's happening up here. Even with the light pollution, I don't think it'll be an issue. But so anyway, I did try and take pictures of the sun. I was taking pictures of the sun with both of my cameras, and whenever I could, I took a picture of the stars with my better camera. And so I guess I have some data here from the 19th to the 22nd, and so here you can see I still only have this one picture of Orion, because I think that's all I ever got. But I did have two pictures of the sun, so I was able to connect a line between those two pictures and then see where it was with proximity to Orion's belt. And so I'm going to move this and show you where that star is. If you can't see it, it's right there. So the celestial equator is supposed to be right above that. So if I bring that back now, see, I haven't moved my mouse, and so you can see on the 19th, it looks like it's right on, possibly just a smidgen above that. And remember, the pictures were kind of shorter in the width, so if I drag them out, they might actually move up a little bit. But here's from the 20th, and the interesting thing to note is, again, here is Orion, the star, and it looks like it's in the same position almost exactly. So again, the celestial equator runs right above that star in Orion's belt, so it's really close. But it's interesting that it was close for both the 19th and the 20th. And then on the 21st, I had no data. And then on the 22nd, I think I just left this line in there from the 20th. And then I had a picture of the sun on the 20th, so you can, or the 22nd, and so you can see it's moved up. But so anyway, unfortunately, that is just, I just didn't have enough clear skies at night to take more pictures of the stars either with my old camera, because there was some stuff I wanted to try and confirm I wanted to see if I could get a better picture of the Orion when it was out here, but that just never happened. And then I was only able to get like one picture of Orion with my good camera, but in addition I've got this resizing issue going on. So I don't know. So again, I'm kind of relying a little bit on other people's data this year. I think it could be the 19th or the 20th, and from the other witnesses, it does kind of look like it was the majority of people were seeing things on the 20th. So, but I want to discuss one more thing, and that is the other seasonal day that preceded this recent seasonal transition we just had. So in North America, it would have been the shortest day of the year. So, as I mentioned, the sun is bouncing between the Tropic of Capricorn and the Tropic of Cancer during the year. And, we have winter when the sun is all the way down here. And winter, I guess, actually begins on the shortest day of the year, when the sun gets down to this extreme, and then when it starts to return, winter, I guess, is happening for us as the sun is heading back towards the celestial equator. So anyway, I was looking for the day when the sun would hit this extreme position and return. And this was the first time I have ever collected sundial data with reasonable amount of confidence, like so the stars aligned, so to speak, and everything worked out very well. Like, I've struggled with these short sundials for years now, and I've never been satisfied with the results I see from the short sundials, because it's just, it's shifting by, it's splitting hairs from one day to the next, and it's really hard to see that shift. It's so slight. So I experimented with a really tall sundial for the December solstice. And what happens with a really tall sundial, I was using like a 200-foot tall cell phone tower. The movements from day to day are much more than what you see with some of these other sundial methods. Like, if we go back to Juan Carlos, how about that? I was right there. So, like, it could move that little bit of light you see between the mark and his string. That's how much it can move in one day, and then it can move again that little bit to be on the mark. That's what we're talking about, and it's very, very slight. And if you have clouds, and if you have a shaky hand, or this mark is too thick, or it's just hard to see sometimes. And so, anyway, this seasonal day was the first time I used a really tall sundial, and those little movements we were just looking at are now much bigger. This is like a foot or 2 foot of movement. This is a road. We're looking at a road. I was recording, putting chalk marks down on a road, so this is like a white line on the side of the road. So you can see on the 19th, the shadow pattern was progressing here, and then on the 20th it was here, and then on the 21st it was here, and then on the 22nd it was here. So it jumped like boom, boom, boom. And clearly I can see that this was the day that the sun hit its extreme position and started to return. So so this was the clearest that I've ever seen a seasonal day confirmed so far. And there's something interesting going on about the time of day that this occurred. Like, if it moved this much, this black line approximately, from here to the blue line, it moved that much in one day, then I have another line, same length, shown here. It looks like it must have returned, it might have hit, if it was the same distance, it was already returning, I guess is the short way to say this. Like, it already hit its extreme position and started to return. And so that looks like, if I recorded this this blue mark at 9 o'clock in the morning, it looks like it might have gone 3/4 of a day after that, and then returned another quarter to get to my next mark that I made the next day. So, all that to say, it looks like the extreme moment might have occurred 18 hours after I recorded this. So if 18 hours, keep that in mind. So now jumping to some spreadsheets and some, so again, this was the time of day I recorded the mark on the 20th of the winter solstice, shortest day of the year. But it was 18 hours after that I think it actually hit its extreme. So that's what this is. It's just, I'm just adding 18 hours, so that throws us to the 21st. And so that's what this date is here. So this day, it was starting to return on the 15th, sorry, on the 21st at like 3 in the morning. So at sunrise, that would be the first day of spring. That would be the first day that the sun is returning from my location. So I'm still in the process of trying to prove out whether the seasons are equal or not equal. And so this is just food for thought. But based upon this data right here that I was able to collect, the first time I was able to collect with reasonable amount of confidence, if the solar year is 365.242, then I simply divided that by 4, and each season, if the seasons are equal, if, should be 91 days, 0.31 or whatever. So what I did was I added that to this, and then I subtracted off a day because this is the full season, and like I was explaining kind of with all this stuff, like there's this thing called a sign day that I think is kind of ending the season or whatnot. So anyway, what it all amounts to is I'm still testing to see whether the seasons are equal. Modern science, it surprised me to discover, is claiming they're not equal. I just can't. I have a hard time believing that, like, that the creator would, decide to make his seasons slightly unequal. And I mean, I do have videos on my YouTube channel discussing this, and like I said, I'm just proving it out. I don't think this is actually the case. I'm still thinking there's a good possibility that the seasons are equal, and it's just because of the way they are measuring. They're defining this equinox. Modern science defines this equinox, and timeanddate.com defined the equinox as when the sun is like touching the celestial equator, the disk of the sun touches the celestial equator, but really, I mean, I think it should be when it's bisected. And like I said, well, if I didn't mention it, I don't think I did, but if you check out my history on my YouTube channel of all my sundial efforts, you'll see from the very beginning I was saying I thought it was, I understand the importance of verifying equinox events, but it just seems so much simpler to me to be able to confirm a solstice event, because you're not trying to find some mark in the middle, you're simply looking for the shadow to hit an extreme and return. And so anyway, I'm just testing out, and so modern science, I looked at modern science, and I think I have it here. Maybe I do. Yeah, I do. Cool. So I pulled 10 years of timeanddate.com's data, and I looked at all this time, and I compared it, and it looks like, it's been a while since I looked at this, but you'll see that number is familiar, 91.31. It looks like the in-between solstices is very close to that 91.3. It's within like half of a day, but it's between equinoxes. That's where things get loopy, and I think it's not it's not easy to explain here, and I'm not gonna go into that here, but it has, like I said, there are a couple things going on, like this 0.4 thing. I think potentially it has to do with this little overlap of time. And what was the other picture I was looking at? Well, timeanddate.com. And like I said, I think this is off, so that was the 0.4. I think that's just because of the duration of a sign day. And then this, I think, is off because of the way they're defining the seasons. Like, who are they to say, yeah, this season begins because the disk of the sun is touching the celestial equator? Like, doesn't it make sense that the seasons are beginning and ending when the sun is like divided by, I don't know. So anyway, I'm in the process of trying to prove out. I'm open one way or another. I'm just trying to be diligent to prove it out, prove all things. But all that to say, if the seasons were equal from the end of this season, that's what this timestamp represents, from the end of the season to the end of the next season would be 91.31 days. So then the beginning of the sign day would be a day before that. And so that's why you see in this equation I'm subtracting off 1.3 days. But anyway, if I just subtracted off one day, it'd kind of still be the same day, I think. You know, if your reckoning is from morning to morning, if you're reckoning your days from morning to morning, this would have occurred sometime in the night, either way. But the point is that the sign, if the seasons are equal, the sign would have began on the 20th. And so I guess that would mean the first day of spring is on the 21st. And this seems to be in agreement with what the majority of witnesses are saying. So all that to say, it was, like I said, it was kind of a tough year. It was kind of a tough seasonal transition, but I mean, based on other people's data, I mean, right now, to me, based on the other witnesses and then also the equal seasons thing, it just seems like it could have been the 19th or the 20th, but it seems like the majority are pointing to the 20th. So it's my current understanding that the first day of spring, I guess, was the 21st. And like I said, I'm open. I'm a truth seeker. Maybe after people watch this, other people will have data or points to suggest or consider. So I mean, I'm open to discuss it, but I mean, it's just, unfortunately, like I said, it's been a busy time, and it was tough for some people this year, looking through the clouds and whatnot, and this just, to me, this is what seems to make the most sense, and to people who aren't too familiar with it, I guess, I just want to kind of give a little bit of an explanation of these things and some food for thought, and that's kind of what it looks like. So, and I want to keep calendar thoughts independent of this work. Like, this is, I'm just trying to focus on the seasons alone here and keep the calendar out of it. Like, I think that's what kind of unites us all, is, well, I think it should. Regardless of your calendar, I think we all have to admit there's something very profound and important about Genesis 1:14, and whatever choice we might make in the calendar about intercalating, or however you run your calendar, I think it's still important to know what the luminaries are doing. And so I really pray that I'm thankful for the truth seekers that joined this effort and allowed me to share their data, and I just, encourage people to keep doing this and more people to do this, and we can collect this data as a team and as a body, as brothers and sisters in this quest for truth. And I mean, kind of once we have the data out, we can kind of, I guess, decide on calendars from there. So if you're interested in my calendar thoughts about all this, then I will be making a separate video that discusses that. But for now, this is all I'm going to say. As far as the seasons go, it really just seems like the majority of people were seeing the sign on the 20th, and so it seems like the first day of spring might be the 21st. That's kind of where I'm landing this time around. Please let me know if you have any comments or thoughts. I'd love to discuss it, but I guess that's it for now. So shalom, and may Abba bless as you continually seek out his truth in love with a pure